So, in my last video on Shogun, I said something along the lines of this show will likely be forgotten by the end of 2025. But I don't believe that will be the case, and I think that not only will this show not be forgotten so easily, but it's going to have a major impact on future shows and movies to come. From the cinematography to the dialogues that a certain director should seriously learn from, to the many subplots that are carefully woven into the main narrative. For those of you who are watching this video before watching or finishing the show for some reason, spoilers ahead for episodes 1 to 10. I'm assuming this is the last time I'll make a video on this, but only time will tell. Also, if you're yet to see Shogun, you need to first of all throw away any and all assumptions you have about this time period in Japan, especially all of you anime watchers out there. You guys are notorious for this kind of behavior. Now let's get on with it. One character I find very interesting that I didn't talk about earlier was Lord Omi, Lord Kashige's nephew, who pissed on John in episode 1 and oversees the boiling on human beings for his uncle's meditation. Yeah, that guy with the funny haircut. He spends a huge portion of his time trying to win over the heart of a celebrity prostitute who has no desire whatsoever to stop nor retire because she devotes unwavering loyalty to her madame. And no, I am not kidding. You see why I say throw away any assumptions you have about this era? Now, as for me, I was already in love with this series in just the first 2 episodes, but it wasn't until I was halfway through episode 5 that I realized that they don't tell us very much about John's life. All we know is that he's from London, he really hates the Portuguese, he really wants to smoke the Portuguese, and he's got 2 kids back at home, one of whom he hasn't seen because he left London before she was born. And the main reason he left on his journey is to explore the world or something. The show is written so brilliantly that you don't care much about his backstory. Even if he didn't say anything about where he's from, everyone would have assumed he's British and that would have been enough. John's relationship with Mariko and Lord Toranaga goes through very interesting arcs respectively. Initially, Lord Toranaga saw John as nothing more than a pawn to use against his political opponents, someone to get information out of and eliminate when he becomes of no use, and someone he absolutely never trusted and always kept at arm's length. But by episode 8, John had already saved his life several times and taught his men effective ways to use cannons against his enemies, and slowly a friendship between them was formed. And by episode 10, he's building a fleet of warships for Toranaga. Mariko is first and foremost John's eyes and ears in Japan. It's through her and a little bit of common sense that he learns most of what he knows about this foreign nation, which in some cases feels like a completely different world from the one he grew up in. It's mostly through Mariko that John goes through a really interesting arc himself, from a foreign man who's constantly confused about the way of life of Japanese people, their customs and traditions, and how they value death as much as life itself, to truly understanding and accepting them for who they are and being comfortable with the countless differences between himself and them, and also accepting the fact that he probably will never completely understand these people, including Mariko herself, who he slowly falls in love with. Speaking of which, the romantic tension between these two is so fucking obvious to everyone, despite their attempts to convince themselves otherwise. Whenever they're arguing, it's usually in English because John can't speak Japanese, although he's learning it fast, and anyone who simply observes them long enough thinks to themselves, hey, you two need a room. Lord Toranaga sees it, Kashigi sees it, the celebrity prostitute sees it, the guy who wants to marry the celebrity prostitute sees it, the highborn lady who's assigned to be John's consort sees it, Mariko's husband sees it. Oh, that reminds me, fuck this guy. Fuck him for not dying when he was supposed to. Fuck him for ruining a potential threesome for John. Fuck him for being such a bitchless, insecure, spineless wife beater. Can you imagine this man tries to make things up to Mariko-sama by making her tea? The audacity. And I know 100% the only reason she said yes to that is because she had no choice. Her husband has absolute authority over her, as is the norm in Japan. So she knows denying him that will just piss him off even more. And then to add insults to injury, he asked her to die with him should Lord Toranaga surrender to Lord Ishido. To which Mariko, the queen that she is, rightfully says, I wanted to die to get away from you. I would rather live 1,000 lifetimes than to die with you. There is not a single diss track on this planet that can top this one line. And then this man starts crying. You didn't even think to apologize. You didn't even think to ask someone to intervene on your behalf. At least give her a foot massage for standing up by your side all these years or something. Your presence kills every ounce of joy among women everywhere you go, even among your wife and son. Your sexless marriage that has zero romantic tension from day one is like that simply because of you. And the best idea you could think up to fix all of this mess is to offer your wife tea and death. And let's be honest, honest, the one reason you wanted her to die with you is so that you don't lose her to John Blackthorne, the only person that everyone, including yourself, has admitted she truly becomes more alive and happy around. And you never bothered to pick up any clues from how he treats her to fix your marriage, and instead you offer her tea and death. Fuck you, 6 Ways to Hell, you waste man.
No offense, but you are a stupid asshole.
Anyways, let's move on. Lord Toranaga is fucking terrifying, by the way. This man has been leading men to war since the age of 12, the same age he first chopped off a man's head. Of course, he was very sloppy at times, being a child and all that, but practice makes perfect, as they say, and Lord Toranaga soon developed a reputation for being a cunning and strategic leader, and that's why his enemies and political rivals fear him so much, because no amount of time you spend in a conversation with this man will ever be enough to predict what he really plans to do next, hence Ishido being so desperate to get rid of him. Lord Toranaga is also partly responsible for John having so many enemies in Japan, among his men especially, because he was constantly giving John a high-ranking position in his army, even higher than Lord Omi, the guy trying to wife up the celebrity who. Unfortunately, the great Lord Toranaga has only one son who is probably the most annoying character in the entire show. There's no doubt he's kind of a victim of circumstance, and it doesn't help that everyone looks down on him as a weak man who will never live up to the mark set by his father himself. Gosh, even the way he dies is just so pathetic. You just end up feeling bad for Toranaga for having him for a son. But Lord Toranaga, being so cunning as he is, uses this tragedy in a way you probably wouldn't expect. And by the last episode, I promise you'll be terrified of this man with the way he uses John Blackthorne. If not for the fact that this is a limited series, Shogun could have easily dominated Game of Thrones at this rate, especially in the hands of more competent writers like these guys. But then again, I remember The Witcher kind of tried that, and yeah, we all know how that went.
Fuck.
The relationship between the Japanese and Portuguese is a lot like two girls who want everyone to think they like each other and are best friends but secretly hate each other. The Japanese secretly see the Portuguese as barbarians and likewise the Portuguese. And John is basically the secret best friend of the Japanese who comes along and fuels the subtle rivalry into something more obvious. I genuinely want to learn more about this era of Japan and how much of this era still exists in modern day Japan as well. And I speak as if anime hasn't made me curious about Japan enough. There's something about the way the women speak that is really soothing, if I should say. It's mostly among the noble women. Sometimes Mariko speaks like that, but it's mostly Usami Fuji, Lady Kiri, who sounds a lot like Unohana, and also the celebrity who. And it makes me wish they were speaking directly into my ears, especially the Queen Mother, Lady Ochiba. I'll say it now, I'm willing to pay good money to have her read me bedtime stories every night. Her voice is it's addictive, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'm just so down bad, but it's addictive either ways. Speaking of the celebrity hoe, I don't know what it is about this woman's vagina that makes every noble man who sleeps with her want to marry her immediately afterwards. But I won't lie, I became really curious. And the show never revealed what his secrets were. Shogun was one hell of an emotional experience. It took me about 2 hours to watch the last episode because it was indeed the end of such an exceptional work of art. And these characters will live with me for a long time. This show really took me to another world, and I kind of feel empty now that it's all done and gone. I know I can always rewatch it whenever I want to, but I also know that it's not going to feel the same. So all I can do is hope that I come across another show that distracts me for a while. Because as much as I hate to admit it, this show will surely affect the way I view TV shows from now on. I just hope in a good way. Because Shogun has definitely set itself as one of, if not the best, limited series out there that I have ever seen. It is perfected TV storytelling. If you disagree, go argue with the competent writers.